Hello, We Damage We is the channel. My name is Rowan, and it's Sunday, which means once again, Jim at Jim's Books, Reading, and Stuff has released an alphabetical tag, and we are going to do it. It is 4 p.m. here in the wonderful state of Minnesota. I have not taken a shower yet today, and I'm wearing a t-shirt that I bought at Hot Topic in the year 2007, and it still not only fits me, but has not disintegrated completely. The collar, you can kind of see, is starting to fall apart a little bit, but yeah, I gotta rep ODB. On this, America's birthday, the day that Jesus came down from the cross to give freedom to America. So let's celebrate America by doing the H tag. Prompt number 1. H is for Harry Potter. Would you prefer to travel to Hogwarts in the flying car or on the Hogwarts Express? I would go with the Hogwarts Express probably, because it's like much less stressful, I would imagine. And they have like the treats trolley where I can get all the wizarding candy and meet all my friends and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I'm going with. Next, H is for horror. Why do kids love horror? I think that being scared is exciting, exhilarating, and when you experience that through horror, you get to have that experience in a safe way where you can be scared, but there's no actual chance of harm coming to you, you know. And I think that being scared, it makes you excited, gives you an adrenaline rush, gets you all amped up, and I think that's fun for kids. I think that, kids are experiencing feelings for the first time, and that's an exciting thing. So I think that's why kids love horror so much. And I was no exception. I was a big Goosebumps head when I was young, and then when I first started reading grown-up books, I was obsessed with Stephen King from the ages of like 10 to 16 or so. He was like my main go-to. I had some like I read a lot of him when I was like 10 to 13, and then I went through a period where I read other stuff, and then when I was like when I was a sophomore in high school, I read all of The Dark Tower and all of the novels that are tertiarily related to The Dark Tower. So that's like Salem's Lot, Insomnia, the Hearts in Atlantis, the story about the Low Men in Coats. There's tons of stuff because characters from Salem's Lot and Insomnia and other stuff come in and cross over into the Dark Tower. So I read like all of that when I was a sophomore in high school. I just only read Stephen King that year, I think. And then after that, I kind of like didn't really ever read Stephen King again. I mean, like I have. I have. I read Doctor Sleep when that came out, which was okay. But that was kind of the swan song of my Stephen King love. And I've been getting back into horror literature. I feel like in the last couple years, I've read things forever that are horror, but like kind of get categorized outside of horror because people, when things are like well written, they like to not want to label them as genre. But I've always been a big horror head for movies, especially. I do collect films, so like right next to my desk I have piles of movies, like scariest movie ever made, Ghoulies 3, Ghoulies Go to College, Out of the bowl and totally out of control. So yeah, I'm a big horror head, and I think kids love horror because horror is fun. H is for Hemingway. Hemingway or Fitzgerald. I'm gonna say Fitzgerald, though I am pretty inexperienced in both. I have read one book by each of them. I read For Whom the Bell Tolls, and I've read The Great Gatsby. So between those two books, I greatly preferred The Great Gatsby. I don't know. H is for hardback. Do you prefer hardbacks or paperbacks? I prefer paperbacks. Hardbacks look nice, but like, I'm more about the utility of reading. So like, they're heavier, they're bigger, they're more cumbersome. Dust jackets are annoying because either they're like slipping around or you have to take them off and then like remember where you put them, and like it's just I'm not a huge fan of the hardback. If I have a choice, I'm usually going with a paperback, and paperbacks are usually cheaper, so it's like a double win. H is for Thomas Hardy. What is your favorite Thomas Hardy novel? It's no secret that I'm not a fan of the classics of the Victorian age. I've never read any Thomas Hardy before. It's never called out to me as something that I think I would really like. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, I don't know. Just hasn't happened. Not super interested. H is for hot. If you are in the Northern Hemisphere, how are you coping with the heat? The beginning of June, it was really hot here. And it wasn't like crazy in other places in the country yet at that point. But it was like, here in Minnesota, it was over 90 every day for like, I think like almost 2 weeks straight, which is like unheard of here. Not to say that it doesn't get hot here. It does. But it's pretty rare that it gets that hot for that long, especially that early in the year. And that was miserable because I had been enjoying reading outside, and I haven't been able to do that lately. And so things have been getting buck fucking wild in the Pacific Northwest, as I'm sure everybody knows. It's been like, like 115 degrees in the Pacific Northwest, which is crazy because things rarely get above like 80 degrees there. Here in Minnesota today, it is 97 degrees, which is very hot. But we've been having mostly 80s for the last couple weeks. And on Wednesday this week, the high is 69, which is wild that it can be 100 degrees today, and in 3 days it's going to not even crack 70. So how am I coping with the heat? I live in a house that has central air, and I live in the basement, and often it is so cold in the basement that I wear a sweater because it is so chilly in here. So I don't have much problems. I just don't go outside. H is for Hunger Games. Do you prefer the Hunger Games or Harry Potter? I feel like I'm going to have a lot to say about this. So my short answer is Harry Potter. That being said, I'm pretty over both of them. So Harry Potter was my generation's thing. The books got like popular, like really popular, around the time the third one came out, I want to say. Like, not to say that they weren't popular before that, but like they were like everywhere by that point. And that was around like 1998, I want to say, or so. And at that point, I was born in 1990, so I was like 8, and in the third, at that point, I was around the same age that Harry and the kids were. And then the last book came out in 2007 when I was 17, and the kids in the book are 17. So it was like, it just paralleled my life very neatly. Like, they came out during my childhood, and they were like in the zeitgeist during my childhood. They were the biggest thing in the world during my childhood. So they were a big part of my childhood. I read them a lot. When I would get the flu, I would reread them all. But the last one came out, and I read it, and then I never read them again. And then the movies came out. The last movie came out, it was kind of like done with it. A couple years ago, I rewatched all 8 movies, and I was sort of like, yeah, I think I'm good. Hunger Games, on the other hand, that got really popular when I was in college. And I read the first one, and I was on summer vacation, and I had just, it was so popular, and it sounded... So I'm a big fan, first of all, of Battle Royale. Like most people, I was first exposed to the story of Battle Royale through Kinji Fukasaku's film from the year 2000. Fukasaku is a legendary Japanese director. Directed the Battles Without Honor Humanity series of Yakuza films in the 70s. And his final 2 films were Battle Royale and Battle Royale 2. He died in the middle of making Battle Royale 2, and it was finished by his son. But I saw that movie when I was in high school, and it had never, I'm pretty sure at that point, had never had like an official U.S. release. But Netflix, this is like original Netflix, like in the mail Netflix, had a DVD of it that was like, I don't know if it was like legit, but like the subtitles were all mistranslated and full of spelling errors and like didn't work properly. So it was kind of like a labor of love to try and watch the movie, because you had to overcome all these obstacles. But I had a DVD burner, so I burned myself a copy of that there DVD, and I would bring it to parties and stuff, and we would watch it. And it's one of my favorite movies of all time. When people ask you the question where they're like, what's your go-to movie that you watch when you want to like feel good, or like what's a movie you could watch like a million times and never get sick of? Battle Royale for me, absolutely. I just, it's not like the first movie that I would think of when I'm like, what are the greatest movies of all time? What is like my favorite movie of all time? But it's like, I love that movie a lot. And when they... So the book, it's based on a book. The book, when it was first published in America, kind of had a similarly neglectful story where it wasn't translated very well, and then it went out of print. But in the mid-2010s, when I was working at Barnes & Noble, they retranslated it and re-released it, and I bought it, and I read it, and it's actually a very long book. It's like, I think it's almost like 700 pages long. And it's a pretty good book. It's not like gonna, blow your mind, and it's not particularly that much different from the movie. I thought the movie was a very, good adaptation of it. But it was a good book. So, all of this is a very long way to say that Hunger Games is notorious for being extremely similar to Battle Royale. Susanna Clark, is that her name? No, it's not. Is that her name? What's her fucking name? Susanna Clark is the one who wrote fucking Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Suzanne Collins. Sorry. Suzanne Collins claims to have not known what a battle royale was, and that, I believe her. You know, it's not like so far-fetched that two different people could have the same idea. But because I loved battle royale so much, I decided to read Hunger Games, and it was fine. And then I started the second one, but got kind of bored of it, because I feel like the second one really suffers from, like, you do the whole first story, they go through all these trials and tribulations, and then they, like, overcome them, and then the second one, it's like, guess what? We're gonna do it all again. And that's lazy. The third one is much more about, like, the politics and rebellion and uprising and blah, 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 blah. Much more focus on the dystopian, like, government and things like that, which is cool. I never read it. I did see the movies when they came out, which were fine. So, the original question that I am supposed to be answering is Harry Potter or Hunger Games. And for my personal experience, my history, the fact that I've actually read them all, I have to say Harry Potter. But at this point in my life, I am so fucking sick of Harry Potter. There's this TikTok of the guy who plays Malfoy in the movies doing, like, tell me you're a Harry Potter fan without telling me you're a Harry Potter fan, and the stitches that people make for this TikTok. I've only seen a couple of them because TikTok is smart and knows that I don't want to see them, but I see them on, like, channels of people, like, doing commentary videos and stuff about TikTok. And let me tell you, there is almost nothing that makes me want to cringe my soul out of my body and, like, astral project into the stars like Harry Potter fans, millennial Harry Potter fans, who are, like, my contemporaries. People who are in their 30s and are still, like, obsessed with media from their childhood. There's nothing inherently wrong with liking things that are made for kids, but, like, we like stuff when we're kids, but then we grow, and we change, and we learn. And I'm gonna be judgmental. If you're healthy, if you're a healthy person who has healthy interests in arts, your taste and change grows with you. You find new things that speak to you in different ways about new experiences that you've had. And you can still have appreciation for the things of your childhood. But, like, these people in their 30s who are, like, going to Harry Potter land and, like, making a big deal out of it, like how Disney adults are. I mean, Disney adults are its own thing in its own right, but, like, it's just cringe. It's just straight cringe. And so, when you ask me Harry Potter versus Hunger Games, like, Harry Potter is so much more cringy and awful than Hunger Games. And that's not even getting into J.K. Rowling, like, as a person. Like, at this point, there's a laundry list of reasons why I'm never gonna read or watch Harry Potter again. And she's a big part of that. But, like, yeah, it's just, Harry Potter is not great. So my answer to this question is Battle Royale. Watch Battle Royale by Kenji Fukasaku. That movie fucking rips. Let me tell you. Alright, where are we? H is for honey. Pooh, the bear, was addicted to honey. What is your sweet addiction? Taking this literally, the answer is Kit Kat bars and Reese's peanut butter cups. Taking this a little more in the way that Jim meant it, meaning like what is the thing that you like spend your money on. So historically there are like 4 big main art forms that I invest a lot of my time and energy into, and they are books, movies, video games, and music. Books are by far the cheapest of those art forms that I invest in, and they are the ones that I have the least of, probably. Books don't have the collectability that those other things do, because they don't have like the retro thing going for them. So like I showed earlier, I showed Ghoulies 3. What else do I have here that I could show? Also on VHS. Rolling Vengeance. Always use the right tool for the job. Yes, that is a monster truck with a giant drill penis on it. Great movie. But I don't just collect VHS. Obviously, I collect just all movies in general. VHS has the benefit of movies like these 2 movies, which have never made their way off of VHS. Not totally true. Ghoulies 3 was released in one of those like 8-movie DVD packs. That's the only way you can get it on DVD. Never released on Blu-ray. Rolling Vengeance has never left VHS. Once you start getting into like horror and B movies, especially like 80s stuff that was direct to video during like the video store era, there's tons of stuff that's been forgotten. In the last like 10 years, Vinegar Syndrome, the Blu-ray label, has brought a lot of the more well-known and popular movies of that ilk to Blu-ray, which is great. God bless them. But there's still plenty that are languishing and forgotten to time. Some of them are pretty expensive. VHS collection can be very expensive. Most people think of VHS as worthless. But, I mean, those 2 tapes that I was just holding up, those are like $10 tapes or so, give or take. And I have some tapes that are, $100 tapes. Like I have a the company media release of Sleepaway Camp that's full flapped, which means it has flaps on the top and the bottom. Like you have to like physically open the case to get the tape out of it, and that sells for $70 to $100 depending on who the buyer is and how good the condition of the tape is in. But I spend a lot of money on boutique Blu-ray labels like Vinegar Syndrome, who I mentioned, but like, I'm an old school Criterion head going way back to when I was in high school, started collecting Criterion Collection movies. I have a ton of them. And then video games, I've always collected video games, and have never really like gotten rid of my old games. I've always kept them around, so I collect retro games. I have quite a bit of old stuff. I used to have a lot more, but I did at one point decide to sort of like purge out stuff that I never really played, so I got rid of like my Atari 2600 and all the games for it, because like, I mean, I'm sorry, but like those games are just they just didn't age well. They're not fun to play. But I have like every Nintendo console and PS1, original Xbox, everything going back that far. Lots of stuff. I even have a Vita. Love my Vita. And then the big one, the big honeypot, is records. Started collecting records when I was in grade school because my family would go to Goodwill's, thrift stores a lot. And in the late 90s and early 2000s, records were extremely out of fashion. And you could get like everything that had been made up to that point, until records stopped being really made in the 90s. But like everything from the 80s and before that was at least remotely popular, you could find at thrift stores all the time for a quarter. So I built up a huge collection of classic rock, and 80s pop, and even punk stuff. Like you back in the day, you would find stuff like the Replacements, who are from Minneapolis. You'd find the Replacements at the thrift store, and it was like not a rare thing that you would find like Tim on vinyl for a quarter, which is like, I mean, I'm sure to people who have started collecting records more recently, that's like, that's like a joke. I'm not like an audiophile or snob. I just have always thought that records were fun. They're bigger, so they have like bigger art, so you can look at them, and they have liner notes and stuff, and there's just something sort of more intimate about the experience of like two things grinding together to create sound. I don't know. Maybe that's just me being romantic about it. But I've just always liked records, and so when I buy music, I buy it on vinyl. If I like something enough to buy it, I'll buy it on vinyl. And then also record collecting presents the fun of like hunting, going through new arrivals bins, and you don't know what you're going to find, and sometimes you find something you're really excited about, or like taking a chance on something because it looks weird or interesting, and then you can discover new things that you wouldn't have otherwise. I currently, my size of my collection sort of ebbs and flows. I do get rid of stuff every once in a while, especially when I'm like really broke. I will sometimes hawk some because people who collect records know that sometimes the prices will inflate greatly when things go out of print, and I'm not always like beholden to a record as much as I would like to be, but there are always exceptions to that rule. Like for instance, Death Grips is, if you know anything about non-mainstream music, you probably know who Death Grips are. They're kind of a meme, but when Death Grips first came out with their first mixtape, Ex-Military, I was really excited when it was coming out because Zach Hill is in that group, and Zach Hill was the drummer for the band Hella, who are a math rock band from the 2000s, who I was really into when I was in high school. So I bought Death Grips' self-released like 500 copy run on vinyl of Ex-Military that they sold through their web store, and that's the only official release that the record has ever had, because it is full of unlicensed samples that they would not be able to get cleared, I'm sure. And that record that I bought for $20 is now worth around $500, because Death Grips has become so popular in the time since, the 10 years since, and that record is so rare. But I'm not ever going to get rid of it, I don't think, because I love Death Grips, and I love that record. That's my favorite Death Grips record, is Ex-Military. And if you're wondering what the last record I bought was, I've been unemployed for a long time, so my record purchasing has been pretty spotty. over the last year, but a few months ago I did pick up the reprint of Vulgar Display of Power by Pantera, because last year when I was writing my book, I listened to this record a lot to stay in the headspace of the characters, and the sort of tone of the world of the book was very heavily informed by Pantera and people who listen to Pantera. So thanks to Pantera. Not a great fan of necessarily the politics of Pantera, and their, like, for instance, Dimebag's use, blatant and flagrant and iconic use of the rebel flag. But I can't argue with this record. It's quite good. It's quite good. H is for The Handmaid's Tale. If you've read it, what are your thoughts? I read The Handmaid's Tale when I was around 19, I want to say, because my girlfriend at the time, it was one of her favorite books, and she reread it and was like, you should read this. So I did, and I liked it a lot. I do have here right next to me Testaments, which I bought last year, and I plan to read before the year is up. I haven't read anything else by Margaret Atwood. I own a couple other of her books. I have Oryx and Crake and The Blind Assassin, but I've just never gotten around to reading any of her other stuff. And I've heard that her other books are good. Handmaid's Tale, definitely, I feel like it was written in, reaction to the sort of Reagan era and the sort of beginning of the rise of, like, fundamentalist Christianity in America to the forefront of the GOP, which has just gotten worse, and also sort of morphed into this thing where it's not even really fundamentalist Christianity at the forefront of the GOP anymore. We've got just Alex Jones at the forefront of... It's bad. So yeah, the book is very prescient still. Predictive, some say. It's unfortunate that that's true. The show on Hulu has been very popular. I watched the first 2 seasons of the show, and then sort of fell off. Haven't watched it since. No real reason why, just I'm not good at keeping up with stuff, with TV shows. Also, though, I will say that learning that Elizabeth Moss is a Scientologist sort of made me less interested in watching it, because I don't like giving money to Scientologists, because Scientologists give their money to the Church of Scientology, and the Church of Scientology does really bad stuff with that money. So. And the final prompt for today is H is for Edward Hopper. What are your thoughts on the work of Edward Hopper? I will say that my exposure to Edward Hopper outside of Nighthawks is pretty limited. Nighthawks is so iconic that it's hard to even, like, have an opinion about it. It's become so iconic that it transcended art and is just sort of a thing now. But the stuff of Hopper's that I've seen, I like. I liked the ones that Jim showed in the original video, and how he talked about how Hopper is concerned with disconnection and loneliness, particularly in the city. And I'm into that. I think that's a cool thing. I think most people who live in cities can empathize with that. being lonely while you're surrounded with people is a weird thing. So yeah, that's it for the H tag. Thanks for putting up with me talking so much about Battle Royale and Harry Potter. Thanks for watching, guys.